Think you need to aerate your lawn every year to keep it healthy? You actually don't. The lawn behind me hasn't seen an aerator in years and it's doing just fine. And if you've been paying somebody $300 a year to punch holes in your grass, there's a very real chance you've been throwing that money away for nothing. It gets worse than just wasted money though. Aerating a lawn that doesn't need it wakes up weed seeds that were sitting dormant in the soil, and it tears through the soil biology you've spent years building up. That biology, meaning the microbes, fungi, and earthworms all doing their work under the surface, is what keeps a lawn healthy in the first place, and the aerator tines rip right through it every time you send the machine across your yard. My name is Lenny, and I've spent the last 20 years working on lawns, so let's get into it. To understand when you actually need to aerate your lawn and when you don't, you have to go back to what this machine was originally invented for. The mechanical aerator was built for professional turf, meaning golf courses, sports fields, stadium grounds, the places where compaction is caused by heavy machinery day after day. Tractors, golf carts, cleats digging in, foot traffic in the thousands. That's a real problem that needs a real solution. When the soil in a football field gets pressed down hard enough, the roots literally stop growing into it, and you start seeing that around 300 pounds per square inch of compaction. At that point, the roots hit a wall and the whole surface starts to fail, which is where the aerator earns its keep. When that machine runs across a professional field, it's also doing more than just what you can see on the surface. Even if the tines only penetrate about 2 or 3 inches into the packed ground, the impact of that tine going in vibrates and fractures the soil deeper than the visible hole, and the goal is to help the roots find their way down through those fractures and finally break through the layer that had been stopping them. On a college football field or a fairway at a country club, that fracturing work is genuinely essential to keeping the grass playable through a full season of use, and it earns the cost of running the machine several times a year. Your backyard is a completely different world though. You're walking around on soft grass with maybe a dog trailing along, and the compaction problem the aerator was designed to fix basically doesn't exist in your yard. You can forget about aerating on a regular schedule, and later in this video, I'll walk you through a free test with a screwdriver that tells you in about 30 seconds whether your lawn actually has a compaction problem worth solving. The other thing to think about is what kind of soil you have under your grass, because that changes the whole conversation. Heavy clay soils are the ones that tend to compact, because the particles are tiny and they bind together tightly. If you live somewhere with heavy clay, like a lot of the Midwest or parts of the Southeast, you're more likely to run into a real compaction issue. Sandy soils, loamy soils, and anything with a decent amount of organic matter in it almost never has a real compaction problem, because the particles are bigger and they don't press together the same way. Even if you do have heavy clay under your feet, high organic matter in the soil basically cancels out the compaction risk. You can have clay down there and still have a soft, healthy, draining lawn if the biology in that soil is doing its job. So the actual answer of whether you need to aerate has almost nothing to do with the calendar and almost everything to do with your specific soil. There's another sign you can watch for without any tools at all, and that's how the ground handles water. After a heavy rain, or right after you've run the sprinklers for a solid stretch, take a walk around the lawn and see what happens. If you're seeing standing water pooling in areas that just refuse to drain within a reasonable amount of time, that's the soil telling you it has an infiltration problem, and infiltration problems can be tied directly back to compaction. If the water runs off or soaks in the way you'd expect it to, the soil is doing exactly what it's supposed to do, and there's basically nothing there for an aerator to fix. The part almost nobody wants to say out loud is that a healthy lawn doesn't really get compacted in the first place. When the turf is thick, when the roots are running deep, when the soil biology is active, the whole system pretty much takes care of itself. So the people who need aeration the least are the ones being sold it the hardest, and the people whose lawns are struggling are being told aeration will fix it when the real problem is upstream in how the lawn is being watered, mowed, and fertilized. Aerating a struggling lawn doesn't fix why it's struggling. It just puts holes in the evidence. I know exactly what a lot of you are thinking right now, because I get this comment on every video I make about this topic. You're thinking, well, my lawn service told me I have to aerate every year, or my neighbor swears by it, or the guy at the garden center said it was essential. I want to address that honestly, because the truth is that aeration is one of the easiest recurring services to sell in the residential lawn care industry. It takes about an hour of labor, one machine, and it can be scheduled on a repeat cycle, regardless of whether your lawn shows any actual sign of needing it. Nothing on the back of that truck measures your soil compaction before they roll the machine off. They just do the job and hand you the bill. I'm not saying every lawn service is being dishonest, because plenty of them are great and they'll tell you straight up if your lawn doesn't need it. I'm saying the incentive structure of the business makes recurring aeration a very easy default. And you, as the homeowner, have to be the one asking the harder question of whether you actually need the service you're paying for. That question is exactly what most people never get a straight answer to, which is a big part of why I wrote this book. It's a simple step-by-step blueprint to a greener lawn with the weeds gone for good in just 30 days. And it takes you through what to buy, where to get it, and when to put it down. Scan the QR code on the screen or click the link below to grab your copy and transform your lawn starting today. Now, all of that said, I do want to be fair here, because there are situations where aeration genuinely earns its money, and I don't want anybody walking away from this video thinking the machine has no place at all. If you've got a pathway that gets walked every day, if you've got a play area where kids and dogs are running back and forth, if you have any section of the lawn that takes real repeated traffic, those spots do compact and they will benefit from being aerated. Think about the dog run along the back fence where the same paw pattern gets worn into the grass over and over again, the shortcut from the driveway to the front door where everybody in the family cuts across without thinking, or the space between the swing set and the trampoline where the kids land 100 times a summer. Those are the spots where compaction is genuinely earning its name, and those are the spots where a targeted aeration pass can give you a visible improvement. Just understand that you're managing that compaction rather than fixing it permanently, because as soon as you keep walking on those spots, the ground will pack right back down again. The other legitimate use is aeration combined with overseeding, done in the correct window for your grass type. In that case, the aerator is functioning more like a light tiller, opening up small pockets in the soil where the seed can drop in and make good contact. That's a real and useful application. Neither of these two situations describes 95% of the viewers watching this video though, which is why the blanket annual aeration advice you hear everywhere is doing more harm to your wallet than good to your lawn. If you want to go deeper on the actual things that give you softer soil, deeper roots, and a lawn that basically takes care of itself, I've put together a full soil building program that walks you through it step by step. The link is down in the description if you want to check it out. That program is what I use on my own property, and it's the reason I don't have to think about aerating, even though I'm sitting on mostly clay soil. The mental shift I want you to make about all of this is going to change how you think about your lawn for the rest of your life. Aeration is a recovery tool that you use when your lawn actually gets sick, and you don't reach for it on a schedule the same way you mow or water. If you're aerating every single year, one of two things is happening. Either you're running recovery on a lawn that has already recovered, in which case you're wasting your time and money, or you're using recovery to cover for a maintenance program that isn't working, in which case the aerator is basically hiding the real problem from you. You can think of it the same way you'd think about renting a floor sander for a hardwood floor. You do it when the floor genuinely needs to be brought back to life, not on a schedule out of principle. If you're pulling the sander out year after year, either the floor didn't need it in the first place, or you've got a bigger problem than sanding will ever solve. The exact same logic applies to your grass. Once you see it that way, the whole calendar-based approach to aeration falls apart on its own. You'd never take antibiotics every year, just in case. You'd take them when you were actually sick, and aeration follows the same logic. You reach for it when the lawn tells you it needs it, and you don't reach for it just because it's on the schedule. The best way to find out if your lawn actually needs aeration is a test you can do this weekend, and it costs you absolutely nothing. Grab a long screwdriver out of the toolbox, or a marking flag if you have one lying around, and push it down into the ground in a handful of different spots around your yard. If it slides in about 6 inches without much effort at all, you don't have a compaction problem, and you can put the checkbook away. If you have to really lean your body weight on it just to drive it down an inch or two, then that specific spot is compacted and you have real evidence you can actually act on. I want you to do this test in several different areas, because you're going to be surprised how much the reading changes from one part of the yard to another. Push it in out in the open lawn, then try it under the shade tree, Then try it right along the pathway you walk every day. Then try it in the back corner where nobody really goes. What you'll usually find is that the open turf is fine, the shade area is fine, and only the pathway is genuinely compacted. That map of your yard tells you exactly where a targeted fix makes sense and where the machine would just be spinning for no reason at all. It also gives you a baseline you can come back to later to see if anything has actually changed, and if you take good notes on where the hard spots were, you can watch how they migrate or disappear as your soil health improves. Before we get to what to actually do instead of aerating, you have to know the 3 foundations of lawn health, because without these, no amount of aerating will save you, and with these, you'll barely ever need to aerate again. These are all free, they cost you nothing but attention, and they matter more than any product on any shelf. The first one is watering, and you need to water deeply and infrequently instead of a little bit every single day. Aim for about 1 inch of water per week, including whatever the sky gives you, delivered in 1 or 2 long soakings rather than daily light sprinkles. Shallow watering builds shallow roots, and shallow roots build a weak lawn that reads as compacted when it's actually just thirsty and starved. A free way to know if you're doing it right is to walk across the lawn and look back at your footprints. If the blades stay pressed down and don't spring back up, the lawn is telling you it needs water, and you learn to read that signal instead of watering on a blind schedule. Most homeowners have their sprinklers running on a set clock that fires whether the lawn needs it or not, and moving away from that set clock and toward reading the actual grass is one of the single biggest upgrades you can make. The second one is mowing, and the rule is that you never take off more than 1/3 of the grass blade in a single cut. If you let the lawn get long and then scalp it back down to the height you want, you're shocking the plant every time, and you're basically rebuilding it from scratch every week. For cool season grasses like fescue and bluegrass, you want to mow high, around 3.5 to 4 inches in the warmer months to shade the roots and hold moisture in the ground. For warm season grasses like Bermuda and zoysia, you can mow lower, and that constant lower cut actually helps suppress weeds because it beheads them before they can go to seed. Keep the mower blade sharp too, because a dull blade tears the grass rather than cutting it cleanly, and a torn blade of grass is an open wound that stresses the plant and invites disease. The third one is feeding your lawn on a real schedule with a real fertilizer program. A well-fed root system is a root system that pushes down deep, looking for nutrients. And roots that push down deep are the ones that break up soil compaction on their own from underneath. You're essentially letting biology do the work that the aerator machine was trying to do mechanically, and biology is a lot cheaper and a lot more thorough than any machine you can rent. There's one specific piece of fertilizer advice that I think most homeowners get exactly wrong, and this one tip is going to save you from ever needing to think about an aerator again. Whenever your grass is coming out of a dormant phase and starting a new growth cycle, do not come charging out of the gate with a heavy nitrogen application. I know it's tempting because everything is waking up and you want to green it up fast, but you have to resist that instinct. Let the grass hit its natural growth cycle first, let it push a little bit on its own, and give it a little bit of stress, because that stress is what drives the roots down looking for water and nutrients. The second you dump a bunch of nitrogen on top of a lawn that's just waking up, you flip the whole system on its head. The plant redirects its energy to top growth. The roots stop pushing down because you just handed them everything they needed right at the surface. And now you've got a lush green lawn sitting on a shallow root system that's going to struggle the second the weather turns against it. That shallow rooted, weak, water-dependent lawn is exactly the lawn that reads as compacted when the heat comes in, and it's exactly the lawn that ends up on the aeration schedule the following year. You've created the problem you're now paying somebody to fix. If you just wait to feed your lawn until the natural growth cycle has already started to slow down a bit on its own, you get the greening effect you wanted, plus a much deeper root system that carries the lawn through the tough parts of the year without begging for water every 3 days. That deeper root system is the same thing that would have driven itself down through soil compaction on its own, which is why so many people who fix their fertilizer timing suddenly find that the compaction problem they were chasing year after year just disappears on its own. If you want the simplest possible version of everything I've walked you through today, you can do this. Do the screwdriver test in 5 or 6 spots around your yard once a year. If it passes almost everywhere, put the aerator idea completely out of your head and put the $300 you would have spent into a good fertilizer program and some overseeding instead. If the test fails in specific spots like the pathway or the play area, Aerate just those areas or accept them as management zones and stop trying to fix them permanently. If you're doing aeration combined with overseed in the correct seeding window for your grass, that's the one calendar use of an aerator that actually earns the money, so go ahead and run it. For everybody else, you can basically retire the aerator from your routine and put your effort into the watering, mowing, and feeding program underneath it instead. Do that consistently for a season or two, and you'll look up one day and realize the lawn looks better than it ever did back when you were paying for aeration on the calendar. One last thing I want to leave you with before I let you go. The lawn care industry runs on selling you services and products on a calendar, because a calendar is easy to sell against. What I'm asking you to do instead is to actually look at your lawn and let the lawn tell you what it needs, when it needs it. That's a slower way to think about it, and it takes a little more attention than just booking the same appointments year after year, but it saves you money and it produces a better lawn in the long run. That's really the whole thing. Aeration is a recovery tool for a lawn that's genuinely in trouble, and it's not a piece of maintenance you owe your yard on a schedule. Do the screwdriver test, fix the water and the mowing and the feeding underneath it, hold back on that heavy nitrogen dump when your lawn is just waking up, and 95% of you are never going to need to book that appointment again. If this saved you a check this year, hit the subscribe button or click the video appearing on your screen right now for more. I'll see you in the next one.